Well, everyone, we're here. We got everything working. Welcome, everyone who's jumping in. I want to introduce the panel real quick, and then we'll get started because it looks like everyone's on and getting on as we speak. I'll start off with Roger. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go to Stephen next.
All right. I've been in real estate since 2002. Over that time, I've bought and fixed and sold just over 900 houses now, and I've done about another 500 houses. Well, I've either bought for foreign investors or to hold on to. And so, we're now buying houses across the country and seller financing them. And then I do the Flipping America radio show and podcast, which has kind of taken over my life, but that's okay. I like doing it. Three hours a week of real estate education and inspiration with guys like Michael and Stephen and other top investors around the country. And Dan, you will be there soon.
Yes, you're invited.
If Michael likes you, I like you, man.
Yeah, Dan's a cool guy. Stephen, tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right, guys. Good to connect with you. For those who don't know me, name's Stephen Pesavento. I am the host of the Investor Mindset podcast and community. So if you guys haven't listened, I definitely recommend you guys check it out. It's a top 200 investing podcast, top 1,000 out of all podcasts in the world. So it's definitely some good stuff. And what we focus on there is mindset and motivation, how the most successful people think. And I've done over 200 flips or wholesales in the last 3 years since I got started. So I know a thing or two about investing, but mindset is my bread and butter. I help investors get really clear on what they need to do as far as the beliefs, habits, so they start taking the right actions in their life. And we've seen some big changes happen with the folks we've worked with. So it's been a pleasure. And Mike's actually a part of one of our programs, part of one of our coaching groups.
Yeah, man, I'm very big on mindset. 80% of results come from mindset. So for sure, something to look into. Dan, jump on and tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan.
Yeah, my name is Dan Krynzel. I've got my start in the real estate industry about 20 years ago. I'm a traditional mortgage broker and banker. One of the owners of North American Financial. We're in 7 states. We've done quite a bit of mortgages over the last few years. I've had an unbelievable, amazing career, been able to help a lot of families with their residential purchasing. I also have a coaching business called Live Your Passion, and that's really my passion. I love the mortgage business, but I also love coaching. And what I realized was as I was marketing myself and marketing my products and services in the lending side of the real estate business, I noticed I had a knack for marketing. So I started coaching and training realtors on how they could expand their business and expand their portfolio and expand their reach. So I've actually taken that business now that we've been doing, and I've taken it nationwide. So now we're helping realtors actually attract more business online through some methods that I've been, working on for the last 20 years of my business. So I'm really honored to be on this call and to meet you guys and to be able to help and answer any questions, especially when it comes to real-time marketing advice and also the current, state of economy that we're in with lending money. I know that we need money to be able to make these things happen. So I think that's why, I was invited on the call, but I'm here to help. So I'm excited.
We do need money. We need money to buy them, to sell them. Money's a very important piece of this business. So we're glad to have you. Thank you, Dan, for coming. Today, I want to start off, if you guys are okay with this, with asking Dan a few questions about the money piece of it. And then I'd like to get into just more flipping stuff and really go from there. We'll also leave some room for everyone who's on the call to ask questions in the chat. If you post up in the chat as we're talking some specific questions, we'll do our best to get to them. And if not, we'll try to do it by email after the fact, just in case we can't get to everyone. We do probably, we'll have to get this done sometime tonight. Dan, I have a quick question for you, obviously. So I know you're doing a tremendous amount of loans for people and you're very connected. Everyone I invited on today, it was because they're actually doing the business and they're connected to what's going on right now in the industry. And because a lot of what we hear on the news is definitely not what I consider relevant information, but what's really happening day to day in our lives is what we really want to pay attention to. So Dan, for you, one of the questions I have, how are you seeing buyers react to a current market right now as far when it comes to mortgages and everything?
Yeah. So I have seen a lot of action happening when it comes to people wanting to buy and sell. I've noticed there's a trend right now of the contracts that have come in over the last week. I have a pretty big reach with the amount of agents and buyers I get to work with. So the experience I'm giving you is real-time experience. We're having a lot of contracts come in from vacant properties. We've noticed over and over and over again that the contracts now that are just fresh, 24 hours, 48 hours old, are with people that aren't, living in the properties. So obviously that's normal when we have a lockdown, like, in the world that we're in right now. Everyone kind of that is selling their house, we've seen, is starting to pull some houses off the market. Inventory is actually going down. And the people that are having homes that are for sale that don't have people or residents in them are the ones that are getting a lot of the traffic. So that's something that I've seen, right off the bat, which is pretty exciting when it comes to, the call that we're on with you guys wanting to flip and actually, monetize with you guys purchasing and rehabbing and flipping. I think it's a great market for you guys right now.
Now, have you seen the banks at all tighten up loans? Or, you're still, like, if you're a pretty qualified person, it's still pretty easy to get a loan?
Yeah. If you remember back in 2008, we had a mortgage meltdown for one reason and one reason. Well, there was a couple of reasons, but one major reason was we were writing bad paper. 2006, 2007, we were writing loans for people that didn't qualify for those loans. We had people that didn't deserve to be getting loans, and they were getting loans all day long. And then when we had a contraction, or when we had the market actually go down in value, then we had all those notes that weren't being able to be paid. And obviously they weren't being paid because those people weren't qualified to be able to pay them. So when that happened, then we had that implosion. We're not going to have that now. I don't see in our future us having a market to where it's going to actually go down, simply because of, us having to stay in our homes or being very careful with what we're doing because of this virus. I don't see that being a problem. I really don't. I see a lot of action right now.
Yeah, it's resonated with the same thing that everyone I've been talking to also. One question before we jump to Stephen and Roger. Tell us a little bit about the 0% interest rates and anything you've seen creative with them.
Yeah, I want to, if it's okay, can I share the quick story that I told you about the 0% email and video that I did?
100%.
Guys, it's all about marketing. You guys know this. So I looked at this and I wasn't going to, look at this like, oh my gosh, this virus, I'm going to make $5 million extra this year because of this virus. What I looked at was, okay, what are people listening to? What are they going to react to? Because it's all positive. With interest rates going down, that's positive. We want people to refi their house. We want them to be able to purchase homes with rates going down. So what can I do to use this or utilize this? So I sent out a video, and the video kind of went, I'm not going to give you the whole script, but basically the script was talking about the Fed dropping the interest rate to 0%. And that's basically what I had in the messaging. So when everyone looked at that video via email, text message, I did a voicemail blast, did a bunch of different ways to get it out. They looked at that and they go, oh my God, rates are at 0%. This guy's telling me rates are 0%. He's a mortgage guy. I don't have 0% on my mortgage. I'm going to call Dan. So they called me. It took a week and a half to actually take all of the business that came in because of that. And every single person that got on, I explained to them, yes. And if you watch the video, and most of them didn't even watch the video, they just saw the headline on whatever it was that they saw, and they would say, yeah, I want 0%. I'm like, well, it's not 0%. The Fed cut the short-term investment rate, which actually doesn't really do very much with our long-term mortgage rate. However, rates are at an all-time low, and we should probably take advantage of this now. And we got so much business from that. So you guys, there's a lot that we can capitalize as long as your messaging is right and you have something that someone's going to read, and you're going to have that ability to stop someone in their tracks and have them read and want more. That has been just a huge success for us, just in this last week and a half.
Yeah, you were telling me that you got a tremendous amount of calls from that. And one of the things I was surprised to hear from Dan was that you would think some people would be like, well, hold on, it's not 0%. Oh, I don't even want it. How many people called you and were like, nah, man, if it's not 0, I don't want it?
There wasn't one person that felt like they were bait and switched or anything like that, because I was very upfront. And I even told him, I said, make sure you watch the entire video after we get off the call, because I want you to understand that it's not 0%. And then I would explain and explain and explain, and then I would gain their trust. And then I would tell them, it's 3% or it's 3.5%. And they'd be like, okay, that's fine. I want that then, because most people don't have a mortgage rate at that low. And also they got credit cards they want to pay off. And the most important part is everyone wants cash right now. So it's a perfect storm in the mortgage industry. And I've also seen it in my coaching industry as well. You know, we have realtors that don't know how to actually market to themselves from their homes, which has been, it's been an amazing couple of weeks with my coaching side as well because of this.
It makes sense. What I'm hearing from you and what I'm actually really excited about is we think with everything going on that like, okay, the whole world's shutting down. That's what it feels like when we watch the news. And certainly I felt it and I'm not immune to it. And I'm sure most people aren't. But what you're telling me and what I've heard from many other people, which is really starting to make me feel better, is that people really hear what they want to hear. So they sometimes hear that the world's crashing because of COVID-19, but they also hear 0% interest rates and they get pretty pumped up about that. Even if it's just 3 or 4%, they are moving because they want to make things happen. So really interesting topic. It's something worth talking about. So the money's out there, right? People, I've also heard from a couple other people, they've had record months in the last couple of weeks as far as just mortgages, money going out, houses being sold. Yes, some realtors are hurting right now, but most aren't because their clients, we just put something on the market today and we're already at like 5 offers and we just put it on 5 hours ago. And so the phone is probably ringing right now as we speak. I had to cut it off, obviously. I'll make sure I cut it off, but it's going to be ringing in my pocket in a minute and messing up this. Yep, it is going to. Let me stop it, so it doesn't mess up our recording. So, okay, man. Well, thank you for that. Let me ask you, is there anything else you want to add about just the state of the financial market, which is really important for us? That's what funds real estate investing.
Yeah. As long as you qualify, you're going to be able to get the money. You know, the one thing that we have seen over the last couple of days, especially once Trump decided to print some more money, we have noticed that our bond market has completely went into a frenzy. And the reason why is because as we make more money, then our money is actually not worth as much. It's supply and demand, the basic principle of supply and demand. So with that said, the rates have ticked up just a little bit since that happened. And then we've seen them kind of recover. So for anybody out there that wants money and wants to borrow money, as long as you qualify, you're going to be able to grab it. And if you've got to pay 1/4 or 0.5% higher, you got to do it. It's a simple math problem, especially when you guys are flipping. You guys understand all of that. So I would just tell you, yeah, you can get as much money as you need right now.
Yeah, and I'd love to jump and kind of run that to Roger and Steven. Talk to me a little bit about what you've been seeing as far as outside of like the mortgage market, which really is connected to the hard money lending. But what are some of the things you guys have seen with hard money lenders? Any people dropping out, or is there still plenty of money and just some people dropping out?
I'll just jump in and then I'll pass it right to Roger. But so I have seen the private money lenders that I work with, some of them have frozen up. And they're saying, hey, we're just going to sit and wait. But those are private lenders. They're not institutions. So, but a lot of them are still lending with no changes. Although I did hear yesterday that Lending Home did put essentially, I wouldn't say a freeze, but they dramatically changed some of their loan to value ratios and some of the fees that they're charging, you know, going from, for some investors who are part of a special program, from 100% financing all the way down to 60%. From a $400 closing fee to $4,000. So that's a big difference. That's a big change. That's a company coming out and saying, hey, we are seeing some changes in the market and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know that it's going to be bad, but they're thinking to themselves, hey, in case it's bad, maybe they do know stuff that we don't know, but they are saying, hey, in case it's bad, we want to make sure that we're hedging against what could happen. And so we are seeing some changes, but I wouldn't say that's like a blanket across the board. I think a lot of people are still buying. What have you seen, Roger?
Well, Lending Home they're based out of San Francisco, right? The biggest lender that I work with is Civic, and they're out of LA. And I have had some correspondence with them this week, and they're trucking along just business as usual, except everyone in the Atlanta office is working from home. But they're still funding deals. They're still running the appraisals the same way they always do. We're all prepared for maybe changes that are coming down the pike in 2 or 3 weeks. But as of today, everybody I've checked with said business is normal. You know, I bought a house last week in Peoria, Illinois, and sold it today. So,
no slowdown.
Yeah. And some of the lenders, I do know that some of the lenders are stopping and slowing down, but that's hearsay because that's what the people at Civic told me. I really don't use hard money or private money much.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you guys what I've seen personally is one of my lenders is scared to death and he's like, hey, this is going to be way worse than anything in 2008. He has zero stuff to back that up. We talked for about an hour. He felt better afterwards. He was definitely thinking with his heart, not with his head. Another lender seems to be fine. And a couple people I'm working with are like, yeah, no changes, business as usual. I fully expect that people like Lending Home, people that are very fund based, right? They have a big board of directors. They have a lot of people to answer to. I would think they would be the first to go. Honestly, them, and then also people who are emotional. So the people that really have been the ones I've been focusing on are the smaller lenders, but the ones who are savvy investors who've been around a while. So I have some investors that have been in the game 30, 40 years. They've been through this stuff. They know how to react. Now, are they leaning towards making 100% loans? Well, most of those were pretty smart. They, even when things got awesome, they were like 90%, and and then you put 100% of rehab. They always wanted you to have some skin in the game because they're pretty savvy. They're pretty wise. They know that ultimately you need a little bit of money in, and you need to work with good qualified investors. So if you're brand new to the game, you might find it a little bit more difficult to get a loan. If you got a good track record, you've got a little bit of money to put down, I think you'll be fine. You might have to go search. 2008, I had to search, right? I couldn't just go to, there wasn't 100 people trying to lend, but if you talk to 5 or 6, you could get someone to lend to you without even breaking a sweat. Right. So we might be back to that time where, you just don't have 15 people wanting to punch each other to fight for your money or to give you money. Now it's going to be, you'll have to go out and look a little bit, right? You have to do a little shopping.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there's probably a question a lot of people are asking themselves right now who are here listening and participating. Throw some comments in the chat box if you guys have questions or concerns or what you guys are thinking about. But one of the big things is like, well, what's going to happen, right? There's a lot of uncertainty out there in the world because we don't really know. Even some of the smartest minds haven't seen something like this in an economy that's modern the way that ours is, right? So, what could happen? Could it bounce back as soon as we've got the virus under control? Could that be a few months? Could that be 6, 12 months? Could it be much longer? We don't know. The answer is we definitely don't know, but we do know that we are seeing a change in the economy, and therefore we need to be making changes in our business to make sure that we can set ourselves up for the long term, right? And so a lot of people, and me myself, from time to time, I fall into this fear place of wondering and the anxiety of, well, what's going to happen? What about the properties I'm sitting on? Are they going to lose value? And you can start going down this path of essentially scaring yourself out of taking action. But what you really need to do is you need to bring yourself back into a centered place. You need to bring yourself back to a place of saying, yes, things are burning around me. Things are changing, or there's the perception that things are changing. I've got to accept that. And then I've got to move forward anyways, because if you're actively flipping or you've been on the fence about getting started, there's no reason for you to just say, hey, well, I'm just going to sit and wait around and just wait this out. Now, in some ways, you do want to wait. You want to make sure that you're not getting into the wrong kind of deals. But I'm really excited for you guys to take some stuff away from this. And I hope you got pen and paper out about how some of these experienced folks are heading into the uncertainty, even if it's there, right? And that's the kind of mindset I want you guys to have when you're looking at this.
Well, I think also it's a little bit about managing your cash. And I have been concerned about, since we are pretty much all cash, I've been concerned about hanging on to it. I definitely don't want to run out. I've been there, done that, and that's not pleasant. So what we're doing is we're monitoring what's going to happen. I don't know what we're going to get from our payments in April. March, we're okay. But April, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if a lot of people out there are going to feel like they've got a free pass. So we're not stopping, but we are definitely postponing. We've postponed a couple of closings and, moved them back 2-3 weeks just to see what April the 1st is going to bring us in terms of revenue, to make sure that we're still getting the money in from the properties and we don't run out of cash.
That's been one of my biggest pieces of advice is that I'm giving to a lot of my higher level students is it's never good to be thin on cash. Cash is king. That was true 4 months ago, 6 months ago, but it's never been more true than the day.
Even
right?
more so. Yeah.
Yes, even more so. It's really important that like a lot of, I know, and I've done this personally where I have a belief now if I don't have 200 to 300K cash liquid in the bank, that I'm broke. And it took someone who was a CFO to really train me and teach me that. But back in the day, I would if I had $1 in the bank and I could go do a deal, I would do it. And sometimes I was a little tight and things were a little stressful because I hated letting my money sit in the bank. And he really, over a few years of hammering into me, taught me the value of actually having cash reserves. And it's the reason right now I'm not too stressed out, but I am being very cautious on buying a bunch of properties, not meaning I won't buy some properties, but I don't want to overdo it. And I think that was well said by you, Roger, and most other people on the call. Like, we don't want to overdo it right now. This is not a time to jump way out of what we're capable of.
On the other hand, the reason we hang on to cash is in a situation like this, whether or not there should be a panic is a debate probably outside the scope of this conversation, but there is a panic. And what that's going to mean is maybe in the next month or so, the deals that I'm looking at now that look pretty good, they're going to look really good. And I'm going to be glad I held on to some cash.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think things will get better depending on where we go with it. So we have a couple questions. One from Ed. Ed says, hey, I appreciate the info, and how would the values, well, let me just make sure I'm reading. I got my cursor in front of that. It says, would the values be affected right away from appraisal perspective? It's a pretty good question. Thank you, Ed, for that. Who wants to jump in? Do you guys think that what we got going on around will affect appraisals, or will they still just use like whatever's sold?
I'd like to jump in on that.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of appraisals happening. And remember, we have a lot of people that are buying your guys' rehabs after you guys have already bought them and flipped them. So I've seen a lot of what you guys have done. And with the way that the appraisals are going, I don't see them changing because the guidelines aren't going to change. The government has put such a strong hold on us as mortgage professionals and appraisers to where they have to use the certain amount of comps in a certain area, and they have to use those properties. They can't just speculate and go, this area in Las Vegas, all the people that are in casinos, they live in this area and they're not working. So they can't do that. They're going to be, not saying they won't. I just don't see them doing that because they have guidelines they have to follow. That would be my 2 cents with that.
You make a really good point. I'd like to expand on. I mean, they obviously, if we sell a house for 100K more than it's worth, they can't appraise that because they have guidelines. And it sounds like you're saying it basically is the same thing. It would stop them from coming in and say, okay, I see plenty of comps for 200, but because we have the coronavirus, let's just make it 170 to be safe.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen.
Cool.
Steven, I think there's one thing to think about is that when you're buying a house today and you're going to renovate it and you're going to, you're going to sell it in 3 or 4 or 6 months. You do have to be thinking about, well, where is the market going? The appraiser, if you bought it today and sold it today, they're going to look at what were the comps recently, and has there been a significant change in those comps over the last weeks or months, right? So, if all of a sudden over the next 3 weeks, the same type of property ends up selling for 10% less, then the appraiser is going to look at that and they're going to say, hey, well, it looks like we're heading in a downward, direction. I'm going to appraise it as if we're going to continue to go downward. And you just have to keep that in mind. So, what you're probably going to want to do right now is be a little bit conservative on those ARVs, on those purchases. Think, well, where could the market be? It could probably be in a really great place in 6 months, or, maybe it's going to go down 5 or 10%. We don't know, right? That's looking into the crystal ball. But you as the flipper have to make that decision for yourself to say, well, what is my buying criteria now going into these uncertain times? And how am I going to make sure, whether it's having really good operations like Mike teaches, or whatever it is that's your special skill to make sure that you come out that other side, in a strong position?
Dan can probably weigh in on this, but I think appraisers have a duty to report what is. And, 3 months from now, when the property's finished, they're going to appraise based on what is the market. And you're right, Stephen, you got to look forward. I learned this in the crash of 2008. At that time, we learned to start basing our future sales price using what we're seeing in the market. If the market, and in 2008, the market was going down 2-3% per month. And so if we thought we were going to sit on this house for 3 months, then we would factor that into our ARV and make our decisions accordingly. And what I tell my students now is if it's in an up market, then base your future ARV on what it is now. That's the way to be conservative. If it's a down market, then start doing what Stephen just said. Think about what it's going to be in 3 months and base your ARV on that and make your deal now based on what you think it's going to be. And the other thing coming out of that, now that we kind of have a research arm of the Flipping America show, we're staying on top of pricing trends across the country. It's very difficult to drill down to highly local specific, but we're watching what's going on with prices everywhere all the time and paying attention. And for those of you that maybe don't have access to our research, Atom Data is a good source. They're tracking this stuff all the time. That's ATTOM, atomdata.com. Good people, good research, and a lot of it is for free.
Okay. I have a question that I want to ask the group because there's a couple things I always think about, and I've seen this happen over the years. One is first I want to mention and talk a little bit about in 2008. This was one of the biggest crashes we ever seen in real estate. I don't think we're there now, but if we were similar to that, where we were local in Maryland, we basically, because I got into the game in 2007 and 8, I literally got in right before the crash, and so the first thing we did is exactly what you guys were saying. We have a deal analyzer now, and it says, hey, buy it now. It's going to be worth the same thing 6 months from now. The reason we've been making extra profits is because often 6 months later, it's actually worth more. But now it could be that we make a slightly smaller profit. And how we overcame that back in 2008 is we did a lot of research on how much our market was going down. And we found that at the worst time, March 2nd, 2009, literally was the worst day in the stock market, hit an all-time low for that time. And at that point, we were going down 1% a month, which would have been 12% a year. And that's insane. It's a lot to go down. But when we looked at it in the overall grand scheme of things, we were 5-6 months into a house, and it was somewhere between 5 to 6% that it would go down. So we were buying things 5 to 6% cheaper, and we never had a bad deal ever by using that model. Right. But we did have conclusive data. We didn't do it in expectation, because the issue is if we do it in expectation, that what's going to happen in return is you're going to have a much bigger event, meaning you'll never get a deal. If you start going in and offering 10, 20K less, I can tell you right now, the bank's not accepting that. No one is selling at a discount right now yet. I hope in the future they will, but being out there and doing acquisitions right now, no one's actually caring yet. And they didn't, by the way, in 2007 or 8 until we got to about 9, and everyone was pretty convinced. And at that point, they were like, okay, it's discount time. But we had about a year where the market was going down some, and people just weren't aware of it yet. So how do we find the balance between, making sure we stay in a deal safely, but at the same time, we're not offering so low that we're just getting beat out by every other investor?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I have the exact answer because it's so early in the game. This is part of that wait and see methodology of like, well, where is the market going to change and how are we going to continue to buy right now? But we definitely want to, the thing is people are scared. A lot of people who are not stepping up and showing up at webinars like this, who are not, doing the right activities to stay in that good state to be able to move forward, they're afraid. They're thinking, if I don't sell my house right now, maybe I won't ever be able to. And if you believe that the market is going to be in a better place, in a few months, which at some point it's going to come back. And as long as you plan for whatever kind of period you think that is, that you'll probably be able to get a deal, just like Roger was talking about. If Roger, if you're still buying, I'd love to hear a little bit about this. If you're still buying, like, how are you looking at those deals and how are you making the decision? Like, what's a good price today for something you're going to sell in a couple months?
Well, even when the market is trending up, we assume it's flat. That helps us on the back end a little bit. And so far, we haven't changed our formulas for what we're offering at all. If we start seeing the market go down, then we will. But really, I believe that the market is going to be determined by the rate of foreclosure. Maybe second quarter, our results are going to be flat. but I have it on pretty good authority from people in the know that there are a lot of people who are financial experts, by the way, who watch this stuff all the time, that believe that Q3 we're going to see something like a V-shaped rebound. And I don't think the housing market is going to be hit that hard, but whatever blows we take in second quarter, third quarter, we will probably make up for it. So we're just trucking along like normal. I admit our conservatism causes us to miss deals. We lose deals to other investors all the time. Over the past 18 months, we've been losing deals here in Atlanta to the iBuyers. I mean, they're always willing to pay more than we are, as long as you kind of believe. Never mind. Let's not get into the iBuyers right now. But the iBuyers have all ceased operations over in the last couple of days. And so that's opening up some other opportunities, I think, but it's still too soon to know for sure. We're just going to keep on. I tell my team, I know that we need to keep on making money doing this, but there is no one single deal we have to have. If we lose out to somebody making a higher offer, that's fine. We make so many offers every week. We'll get what we need.
Great advice. Go ahead, Daniel.
I'd like to weigh in on something, and I don't want to open up the iBuyer can of worms.
That's a different show.
But at the same time, I do want to comment on that. Is that okay because I have some information on that I know is going to serve everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So I work with a data provider called Ivy Data, which is one of the best data providers I've ever seen in my life. And I've been searching data for years. That's what I've always been basing my marketing on. And when I talked with someone that is very high up in this company and this organization, they did mention and confirm that all activities, and I'm not going to mention the names, but all activities in most of those iBuyer platforms have ceased operations 100% completely. So with that is an opportunity for us. I know that we have a lot of mindset here, and let's stop for a moment and just remember the mindset of the person that needs to sell their home. If they have been marketed for the last year, beat over the head with, we'll make it so easy for you. We'll buy your house. You won't have to show your house. We'll have to do all that stuff. You can piggyback on that marketing, and you can be that individual that is actually offering the same service, especially now when you don't have to compete with their margins, because they probably have more money than we do on this call. That's why their margins are so thin, because they're just looking for market share and a bunch of other things that we're not really looking for. And if we use that and we actually capitalize on their marketing, I think everybody on this call can really help those homeowners that have to sell. It's all about finding the people that still have to sell, because there's a lot of people that have to sell. And when someone has to sell, then your margins and your formulas are all going to be able to be plugged into where everyone wins and everyone's happy. So
here's a dirty little not so secret, Dan. None of those iBuyers have turned a profit yet. They're all losing money.
Yeah. They're not they're not like us, right? They're not trying to cash in on each deal. They're looking just for an overall percentage return, like a fund over a long period of time.
Market share, and then they're they're betting on the future. But right now, their future is looking pretty bleak. That doesn't mean they won't be right back into it when the market turns around. The way we counter this is, we got your guaranteed offer. We'll make it easy for you. The difference is we're going to be fully honest with you up front.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, and they just canceled hey, you guys, whatever market you happen to be in, I can only speak for the markets that I'm in, but I have been told in my market that they've canceled nearly every contract in Raleigh, North Carolina, and in Minneapolis. And I'm sure that it's probably the same in all these other places. So if they just cancel the contract, I know one person very well that they were just doing follow-up on their normal leads. And this person was like, hey, I'm in for closure. They thought they were going to walk away with a bunch of money, and he just bought the property subject to, meaning he didn't have to put any money down. He was still able to get a deal put together. And so there is an opportunity to go and really serve some people, to help some people, and therefore get a deal for yourself that you might not have been able to get otherwise, because it's sometimes it can be hard to compete on price, but all of a sudden when their whole business model is taken off the table while they figure out what's happening, because they've got, people higher up the chain that are making some of these decisions, that's our opportunity to step in and serve if we can.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, I have to jump on that other call. Like I told you
told
about.
me. Yes, thank you, Dan. We appreciate you coming by. Thank you for all the good feedback. And look, man, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do so?
Oh, they can actually, I'm going to give a free gift to everyone if they want it. That's
Mind putting in a chat?
I don't know how to put it in the chat. I've been looking for a second.
Technical. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will email it to you guys. Everyone who registered tonight, I'll email it if Dan gets it to me. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. Have a great day, man.
Thank you guys. Great meeting all of you.
See you. Yeah, you too. So want to jump in. I have something I want to add. And one of the things I wanted to add about what you guys have been talking about is that right now, buying cheaper makes a lot of sense. And what I've found over the years is that if you're just in an emotional place where you're not desperate, you will tend to buy 5 to 10% cheaper just inherently. So what definitely comes with being in the market we're in now, not being what my friend Ray actually is the first one to introduce me to this. I think he might be on here, being a motivated buyer. You know how many times where I'm doing 150 flips a year, I'm a motivated buyer because I have to keep that machine running, and it's a beast to feed. It is a lot to buy that many houses. So I'm very motivated. What I will say is definitely changed is that I'm still going to buy houses, but I'm buying through the filter of not being all that motivated. So I think inherently I'll be buying at least 5 to 10% cheaper. And that really will keep me pretty secure. I don't want to go in and just like take the discount off often. I just won't push the deal as much. I'll make sure the deal makes sense, that on paper, I'm not stretching anything. Because I would, like right now, like a month ago, I would stretch a little bit knowing I could take that ARV from 72 to 73 and it wouldn't, the market's going to go up a little bit and I'd be fine. And even if it didn't, I'd still be okay. But I probably don't want to do that now. I probably want to stick to my guns. Secondarily, another piece to add is I've noticed if you're working with private sellers, like this is really not even a big issue at all, because they very much are going to be willing to give you a discount because they are just sitting home watching NBC News. They're going insane watching all this stuff right now. Right. So ultimately, we don't have to worry about that. The banks have not responded quite yet because they're going to wait to see. They don't really care about all this. They will need data before they'll start reducing. So if their houses start sitting, they'll start selling them cheaper. That's how they roll. So they'll do that whenever they're doing it. I got a couple questions I want to jump into, and I'd love to get Roger and Steven's feedback. One, everyone asks, what is iBuyers? I can tell you what they are is they're a nationwide buyer. Are they just basically like a fund or like an RE, like what is that called? Like a real estate investment fund or RET? Essentially. So they just basically are a big company that put a bunch of money together and they just buy homes. Like if Warren Buffett just decided he was going to be a house flipper and they buy a lot of stuff and they just pile it up, they basically have a big machine. They're not like, one of us just going up and buying a house. They're a big corporation. Some people will say that they're a pretty big threat, but I've found in my experience, if you're like a Roger or like a Steven or Dan or any of you guys on the call, if you're like a person who can sit at the kitchen table and really talk with someone and build rapport, you really never have to worry about an iBuyers or big corporations like that because people do business with people they really like.
Usually not.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll lose a deal here and there, but you're always going to you'll get enough to be able to make a living essentially.
And I think for a lot of people on the call, you do have kind of a national audience here. The iBuyers aren't everywhere, and they're not really REITs. They are actually venture capital funded, private placement offerings, and they've got private money behind them. Not much of a difference though. They have a lot of money, and that doesn't mean that they have a lot of real estate savvy. They don't buy everything, even in the markets where they are. And, I have some friends in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was talking with them. They'd never heard of them. Apparently, none of these buyers are there. But, you have a city like Phoenix, Arizona, or like here in Atlanta. Atlanta seems to be a place where everybody wants to try things out. So all of them are here. And, I know I'm critical of the iBuyers, but this is not intended to be a criticism. And I don't usually name names and take prisoners, but, for those of you that want to know, you have groups. There may be a company called Open Door or Knock. Now, Redfin has gone into a partnership with Open Door, and probably the biggest player to step into this market in the last 12 months is Zillow Offers. And Zillow is a major threat to all of the other iBuyers because they have a national clout, they have recognition, they have following, and they also have their own mortgage company. So they can buy your home and they can sell you one of their other homes and they can do the loan in between. And there's a lot of pieces in place there that make Zillow a real player in this. But at the same time, Zillow also has never turned a profit.
Yep, and they have closed shop too. Also, by the way, they're not
their
making
buying
offers
program
now.
has. Yeah.
Yep. There's that's
all
the
of them
good
are
thing
out
that's
right now.
happening. Steve,
Well, they're not a worry right now. So let's focus on what you guys are going to do moving forward based on coronavirus. And I would just say let's not worry about them, but let's just focus on like what we can do. So I'm really curious, Mike. I want to kind of talk to you about this. You're one of those flippers that I've always looked up to. You've done 1,100 or more deals. Like you're just kicking butt out there. What shifts have you made in your business to really prepare yourself for what could be ahead?
So for me, obviously, I've been listening to a lot of Dave Ramsey over the last 6 months, well before this ever happened, because I don't listen to anything about house flipping with Dave Ramsey because that's a complete train wreck. But I do listen to him when it comes to saving money, having an emergency fund. I believe in a lot of his principles, and he says you need to treat your money like God would want you to treat the money. I'm not even religious, but I kind of believe that, and I think like we need to respect our money. So I've been on this whole thing about cutting my costs down and really cutting it down. Now I hadn't been taking a lot of action on it. I've been mentally planning it because that's how I do. I like to take 6 months and plan something before I take any action. When this all came up, I started taking decisive action. So I literally had like 2 cars and didn't even drive one of them. And I sold both of them and I got a cheaper car. So literally went from $1,100 a month in payments down to about $450 and cut about $15,000 in debt off, which, made my net worth a little bit higher. I'm selling my personal house because I happen to have a second personal house, and, I don't need 2 personal houses. And so this is a great time. People are still really paying crazy amounts of money for homes right now, despite the fact that we're dealing with all the coronavirus. So I'm going to sell this while it's at a premium and just really get rid of everything. I'm going through my bank statements. I just did that recently. I did 3 months of bank statements and just looked at everything. And I also went 19 and 18 and looked at everything in QuickBooks and just found like, where are all my money going? And what can I cut out? What would I have not missed if I hadn't done it over the last 2 years? And there was a lot, man. I'm embarrassed to say, like, I spent $46,000 on food and entertainment in 2 years. Now, there might even be people on this call that don't make that much a year, what I spent on food. I refuse, as someone that, is responsible, or at least thinks they're responsible. I guess I was not in those years. I refused to have in 2020 to spend what people make as a living on food. So I'm going to fix that problem and maybe even lose a few pounds while I'm at it because, good stuff. But the reality is so a lot of it's just looking at your money. When you get into this machine and you got so much going on, you don't really look at your money. So a big part of my process now is every week I'm sitting with my bookkeeper, reconciling my books, looking at every charge that's went out, and really holding it accountable to be like, is this something I really need right now? And not just spending, because when you're a house flipper, this is something can easily happen. You got a lot of money coming in, a lot of money coming out. It's easy to pay a bunch of money for something, or go buy a car, or go fancy vacations. It's just so easy to do that stuff. But I'm really big right now on actually building a lot of cash and a lot of wealth over the next 5 years. And I don't think there's a better time to do it than now, because, I'm just doing this not necessarily because of Corona. I was preaching this well before coronavirus, but coronavirus was the kick in the butt that I needed to kind of start taking action and start doing it.
That's great. I think that's a big takeaway. I hope you guys really do chew on at home, is just to really get your money in order, right? Like, as a business owner, we want to really make sure that we're managing our cash flow, the cash that we have in our bank, and the ability to continue to, run this operation for many, many months in the future. And so that's a really smart thing. I am actually doing the same. I cut a ton of expenses. I was already in the process of selling my vehicle. Same thing. I wish I would have sold it before, because it's definitely a little slower now that people are on lockdown. But with that said, Roger, what are you doing on that front? Kind of shifts that you're making?
Well, I have to admit to everybody here that I'm old enough to be either one of you guys' dad. I'm near the end. I'm 61 years old. And so I've been in this mode for the last 4 years. And this may surprise you, because I've bought and sold, 1,500 houses. And I had all of that stuff that, we think we want to do when we get into this business. And I sold it all. And I am actually sitting in an apartment. My wife and I rent. I did the math 4 years ago now. Wow, time flies. And realized, home ownership is not really all it's cracked up to be, especially when the kids are all grown and gone, and we're sitting there in this house where has rooms that we never use and a big yard that we don't really enjoy. And I had a pond and acreage that I didn't use. I didn't garden, and I don't like fishing. We sold all that. We got out of that years ago, and condensed our lifestyle. And there are a few things that I miss in terms of some of those possessions, but we've been living like that because I'm kind of on rounding third base, heading toward home, and
seems like a really smart thing to do. And I think hopefully everyone can see that maybe there's some stuff you guys might be able to cut out yourself.
Yeah. Home ownership is the big thing.
On the flipping side, Mike, I'm really curious, like, how are you looking at buying new deals right now, kind of with the uncertainty?
So, I mean, for me, we've been crushing it. I mean, we've been averaging 40K a house, but I'm more than happy averaging 30K a house, just for the record. I mean, 40K was not, I don't go in buying houses that say they're going to make 40K. What's been happening recently is that I've been getting multiple offers, driving things up. I've been so focused on cutting costs that a lot of good things have been compiling and making my overall average profit go up. But I'm more than happy to go back to 30, 35K a house, man. I love doing this. And I every day, giggle when I cash a check for 35K for flipping a house, because I'm like, did I really just get paid this for doing that? Because I would do it, like, I wouldn't do it for free, but I would do it for a lot less, honestly. So, I mean, for me, I'm not going to really offer, I always am very big on seeing what I can buy properties at. I don't like to say, well, I need to buy them for 80 and then just run around. No one will sell it to me for 80. If I have to pay 90, the way my brain works is, what would I need to do in my business in order to be able to shave down other costs so I can compete with the average market? Right. So for me right now, where I find that to be, and I think one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to rehabbing would be working with your contractors. So there's always a lot of room you can cut there. I have some students recently. I'll give you a great guy named Petey and also another guy named TJ. They both waterproofed basements, and they got like people to do it for them instead of hiring like a big company. Estimates coming in at like 8K, and they both, one did it for like 3,000, the other one did it for 3,500. You're talking about just that one choice. You're putting a couple $1,000s in your pocket, and throughout a house, there's like 30 to 40 line items. Right. So if you're out there really power shopping, you're squeezing that orange, and you're getting every bit of juice out of it. There's room to really take and get a lot of that value back there instead of going out and worrying about paying a bunch less. Now, if you can get a deal for less, I'm not saying don't do that, by the way, but let's just say you're out there and the market is responding that you're just not going to get them for 80 and 90 is what you have to pay. I believe in cutting costs other places so that I can actually compete with what other people are paying. And instead of complaining and saying everyone's overpaying for them, most of the time people are actually paying their GCs way too much. And if you can cut that part back, you can sell them on the back end for a little bit more. You can get them done faster. And I don't think there's probably not more important time ever to get a house done pretty quickly than now. I mean, yes, you would not want to be 9-10 months into this right. For many reasons, because we have an election coming up and we never know what happens with an election. Sometimes it makes the market kind of stall down a little bit until they know who's going to be elected.
Stephen, you live in Denver, if I remember right. Is that right? But you're flipping houses in North Carolina and Minnesota. And am I right? Did I remember that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think that you can identify with this. And when one market gets oversaturated and it's tough to find the right kind of deals, just move to another market.
That can definitely be the case. I think there's some things about being in a remote market that can make it really difficult. Like, I am really grateful that I scaled my business on the flipping side back in lieu of the fact that my business in general, my goals were changing, but also knowing that there's an election coming up and I was trying to reduce my overhead. I was kind of on this path of doing those things. So I have, way less projects. I have one that's supposed to go on the market in about a week and a half, and a little concerned, not sure what's going to happen. Good thing that I keep hearing, it's in the first time home buyer market pool. It's vacant. It's nicely done. It's in an area that is very desirable, and it's much cheaper than what most people would be looking at. So, as long as we can find somebody who's looking for it and a bank that'll fund them, then, I feel pretty good. But yeah, there's definitely something to be said about going remote. If you're in an area and you can't seem to, make things work where you are locally. But I also, on the other hand, I'll just say that there is something really valuable about being able to go out and be at the property and babysit it in person. and I think that's one of the reasons why, Mike, as you're kind of talking about things, you're able to squeeze so much out of that orange, is because you are there making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to, and you've got 10 other people lined up that are ready to take their job if those people aren't living up to that expectation. And me, I'm basing it on somebody else. And I've definitely had some deals because I was remote where I lost, tens, if not $100,000 because, things just weren't managed well across multiple projects.
Airfare is really cheap right now. That might be a hidden opportunity.
I don't know. I don't know how safe it is, though. But yes,
I haven't left my house in a week and a half. I don't think I'm
not getting on a plane. I got like 900,000 Southwest points right now, and I'm just they're not going to get used anytime soon for at least a few months. That part I'm pretty clear on. I'm not flying on any planes.
The market that we're moving into is just 2 hours away in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a growing city, and we studied it for a while and started doing some marketing there, and we like what we're seeing so far. So, we're just heading there. We can drive there in 2 hours. So I wouldn't even contemplate getting on a plane to go there. I don't have a private jet yet, but as far as adjusting this in light of with the virus, with the pandemic that's going right now, I don't know that anything is radically different yet. What about you guys?
Well, I'd love to talk more about that because I was telling Stephen about this earlier, and it's something that obviously, because I'm very invested in the business, I have a lot of flips going on. This is my passion, and I hope I don't have to go to CarMax and sell cars. I would do it if I had to, but it would only be until I could flip houses again. So I'm really big right now. I'm really keeping my ear to the ground every single day, and I will be probably for the next 3-6 months because I felt like we were coming to a crash sometime in the near future. I did feel like if Trump got reelected that we would have some more time because he's good financially for the country. And, forget everything else. I'm not up here saying 2020 Trump or vote for him. I just don't even care, honestly. I really look at any of these things just from one filter, like how will it affect my life and my ability to run my business? And that's it. And, so far he's been pretty awesome for that when it comes financial. The question that I have for everyone is a lot of people are saying the real estate market it's crashing, and I would love to hear from you guys. And I guess I'll start it off since Roger, you did ask me a question. What I'm seeing right now, and that I'd love to share with everyone is, and I've been hearing this from a lot of different people, the market is actually upticked. So I've been I track KPIs. Steven and I are both kind of we like to track things. So one of the things I track is how many showings I get on a house and how much I sell a house versus what I listed for, the difference between that. And that's actually went up 20% over the last 3 weeks. So I've been getting 20% more showings. And I've also been getting 20% higher more than I was getting above asking price. So this is not reconciled with my brain very well. So I'm obviously out there trying to figure out why this might be the case, because I'm thinking well, why would people pay more now? What I found, and I've heard this from multiple people, and it seems to be true, is that right now, yes, certain parts of the market are hurting. And the part of the market that's hurting is the one where people live in the homes. So a lot of people are rescinding their listings right now if they actually live in the home that they're selling. And if you think about an area, you go in and there's 100 houses, right? And rehabbers and flippers might represent 3 to 5 of those houses. And then the other 95 are going to be people who live in the home. And if a lot of those people are rescinding their listings because, they don't want people running in and out of their houses, well, that makes sense that what's happening for every buyer we're losing who wanted to buy a house, we're actually losing more inventory, because before we came into this across the country, we had a major crisis of inventory. That's why the market was so amazing. We had almost no inventory. Well, now that inventory problem's getting greater. There's less houses. There's still a lot of people buying, and there's not many houses. And this actually makes a lot of sense because I just put a house on the market this morning. I think 9 o'clock this morning. I already got 16 showings and 5 offers in hand. I haven't even counted them yet, but they're coming in as we speak. Phone's ringing off the hook. We've been in a lockdown for 7 days. So if you're in a state and you're well, maybe you guys aren't in a lockdown. They put us in lockdown 7 days ago, but apparently it doesn't apply to realtors making offers on these properties. But I will say, because what I'm seeing is more people want to go to vacant homes. So this is really playing well for us right now. First time home buyer houses, I'm not saying if you're in like this luxury market, or, a vacation market, I don't know how that's being affected. I would assume that's going to be affected poorly. I've only been doing the research on first time home buyer markets, which in Baltimore area is around like 200 to 300,000. The house we listed today was actually 285,000. We've already got offers well over list price and got a lot of offers coming in. We're getting ready to go into multiple offers. It's actually been insane. It's been greater than usual. So I have a hard, again, I know you're hearing me say this. You're probably saying, well, how does that make sense? But we always have to pay attention when we talk about the market, right? When they say the real estate market's going to crash, I think a question that we all should be asking is when they say something, well, the market isn't a whole, right? Like Steve's market's very different than Roger's market. My market's very different. And if you really want to get really smart about this, even in Maryland, I would be drilling down to saying, okay, how does Anne Arundel County versus Baltimore City versus Baltimore County? And then if you're in Baltimore County, I would even go down to like what part of Baltimore County, right? Is east side, the west side, what neighborhoods are doing well? Because what we're going to find and where I think we're going to be heading to if there was a little bit of a downturn, we're going to be heading to people focusing on the niches that are still profitable and understanding what they are. So people that are smart right now and are saying, okay, the east side of Baltimore County is not doing well, but the west side is. So I'm going to put all my focus in finding things that are listed, that I can buy at a discount in that area. They're the people that are going to survive any kind of downturn, regardless of where we end up. Now, but that's the key. You got to be paying attention. So when they say the real estate market is crashing, well, that's impossible for that to be the case, because even in 2008, there was markets in America that actually went up in value. There wasn't many, but San Francisco was one of them. Toronto went up in value. We had like New York City was seeing like very little jump and actually went up in value. DC, very little decrease. Now, Miami, not so much, right? I mean, Florida, California, Las Vegas, they got hit pretty hard, right? The things that were pretty over.
Right.
But Maryland didn't do too bad either. We lost about 10 or 20% because we were close to DC, which actually went up in value. And so when they say the market's crashing, the question I would ask is like, how is it going to affect your very micro, very niche specific market that you will be in? And if that answer is there's a really good, stable home buyer market, you might find that there's not a big downturn for you. And I can tell you, if you are from the Baltimore area right now, the areas that are doing really well are the areas that have nice homes in them and people that have stable jobs. And that's been my focus for the last couple of years. I've been in zombie apocalypse mode for about 3 years, and I've really been recession proofing my business because I felt like we were coming back to one. We had 9 years of growth, and history has told me that eventually that has to come down, and I don't want to be out of this game, right? I survived 8, and I want to survive whenever the next whatever is going to happen. And so when this happened, I was very fearful, like most of us, but I felt like me and a lot of people who were following some of my preachings were uniquely qualified to really kind of implement a lot of things we had been working on and kind of setting up for. So talk to me a little bit about what your feelings are around like the overall market too, because I really believe in if certain markets are going to go up more and some are not even going to go down at all and some are going to go down a lot. We just don't know.
Yeah, I guess my take on it is that I want to preface what I'm saying is that I have no clue. There's no way for me to be able to predict the future. But what I can say is that right now they're not employed. There's a portion of the population that's not going to work in a lot of areas. Now, not across the board, but in my area, like we're on an official lockdown. We're not allowed to leave the house unless it's for specific purposes. So majority of businesses have closed, right? So those folks, they may not be making money. Therefore, they may not be able to pay their rent. They may not be able to pay their mortgage. Therefore, that's going to end up coming down the pipeline in the future where they're not spending money into the economy. And the truth is that I think that there is a high likelihood that this could last a lot longer than just like 3 months. My take is that, based on the conversations I've had with certain folks in the medical side and, pandemic experts that are working in the government, the conversations seem to be that, yes, unless we somehow come up with a solution, something that we can treat this with so that the severity of getting the virus goes down instantly. Like if one of these treatments end up working, we could be back to normal life very quickly. Now it'll take a little bit of time, but the other scenarios that this could be, 6-9 months of peaking and valleys of ups and downs of the coronavirus kind of coming and going. Right. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm definitely planning as if it's, everything's going to go to shit and that we're not going to be in a good place and that, things are not going to be good. Now, I don't want that to happen. So I've got to plan for, well, if everything does go to crap, then I've got to be making money in a different way. And I've got to continue to serve people, because no matter what happens, no matter if the economy continues to crash, as Mike said, and it goes down 1% every month, you can still buy and flip houses. You can still buy and wholesale. You can still run this business. So I'm going to encourage you guys to not be super fearful, but still recognize that like this shit's real. Like people might not be feeling it in their local market, but I also know people in California who are on like total lockdown and they're not seeing any properties sell. So it's very dependent on what's going on in your area. And so you definitely want to be talking to folks around you and seeing like, hey, well, what's happening? Talk to real estate agents, talk to lenders, talk to everybody you can. You're all sitting at home, get on the phone and start calling people and get in touch. And what a great opportunity for when things do come back to have built that relationship by first and foremost reaching out and saying, hey, how are you doing? How's the family doing? What's going on there? And then of course being like, hey, and on the real estate side, what are you seeing? And even if nothing comes out of that conversation, they're going to remember that you checked in when things do come back down the line.
One of the things that I've been doing is reaching out to lenders in the area here that I know, because, we, by the way, Atlanta, Georgia just went over 1,000 cases. We're not in as severe a crisis. And I did mention that I live in an apartment, but what I didn't say is we actually live in the penthouse of a high-rise apartment in downtown Atlanta. And my neighbors include a medical doctor, someone who works for the CDC, a retired venture capitalist, an NBA player, and a rapper. Okay, I haven't had a conversation with the rapper about this, but I've been talking to the medical people about this. And this is not anything but anecdotal. Okay, but the belief in the medical community, at least with the limited contact that I've had, is the coronavirus. Here's the question I put to them. Let's say, 3 months we've had all of the seclusion and isolation we can take, and the economy is melting down. We got to get people back to work, and maybe it looks like we have flattened out the curve of infection, and everybody goes back to normal. But it seems to me, if even one person still is contagious, we start it all over again. So here's the response from the two medical people on my floor that I've asked about this. First of all, the hope is to just flatten the curve in the short term while we come to grips with treatment and also a vaccine. And they believe that a vaccine will be developed. 42 different vaccine samples have been submitted to the CDC for testing so far. Another 150 are on the way. And the hydroxychloroquine, there's some controversy around that. I sat with the doctor and we talked about the side effects of this anti-malarial drug and the possible benefits. And, they're doing clinical studies of it now and it shows some promise, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All of that's to say that they believe that life is going to get back to normal in the next couple of months, as far as, the population being out and public and around. Is the coronavirus, COVID-19, going to be gone? No. In fact, they believe it will subside during the summertime where it's warmer and more humid, and will probably come back next winter. But the hope is by then there will be a vaccine for it, kind of like the flu vaccine now. Now, I take all of that in and I think about what the impact will be. One of the things that is truly unprecedented this time around with this crisis is, we're not allowed to foreclose. I have seller finance properties out there. I'm not allowed to foreclose. And I'm also not allowed to evict. And in fact, I learned on Sunday that the governor of Michigan has made it a misdemeanor if I even attempt to collect. So I can't post a notice. Anybody in Michigan, pay attention to that, because I posted a pay or quit notice on Saturday and I found out Sunday that that's a misdemeanor. So we're backing up a little bit on that. But what I've noticed with what the answers that I've gotten back from the lenders are, I very specifically asked them, as a landlord, I can't collect rent. And now because of that, I can't make my mortgage payment. What are you going to do? And of the two that I've spoken with, both of them said, we're going to take it on a case by case basis. You just got to call us and talk to us. What that means is they're going to work with you. So there's not going to be a mass foreclosure activity going on. And the thing that drove the prices down, if you go back and look at charts and graphs showing this in the 2008 crisis, what drove the prices down, first of all, was the extraordinarily high foreclosure rate that occurred beginning in 2008, coupled with the federal bailout of the banks. This is something that people don't really talk about a lot, but you can see, you can plot this. They just go right together. Once the federal government bailed out the banks with the TARP bailout, some of you may remember that. Some of you were still, trying to get your first date, but once that happened, the banks had no incentive to try to get not only a fair market price, but even what was still owed on the property, because they were motivated to get those properties off of their balance sheet and replace the money with bailout money while they could. And because those non-performing loans and the REOs hurt what's called the Texas ratio, which put them under the scrutiny of the Office of Control and Currency, which brought in the FDIC and shut down the banks. Hundreds of banks were being shut down for this reason. So once the bailout was approved, the banks started dumping these properties at super low prices. And then they changed the appraisal rules, requiring appraisers to consider foreclosures as a part of their opinion of value. And that drove the prices in the market down. None of that is in view right now. Second quarter is going to be bad for America. The financials, any way you look at it, any way you shake it, second quarter is going to be bad. There's no way to avoid it. But the real estate market is, if anybody tells you that the real estate market is about to crash, ask them these two questions. Ask them one question, ask yourself the other question. Ask them, what's your data? What is your data that's leading you to this conclusion? But the question you need to ask yourself is, what's the motivation behind this person saying this? I've got some examples that I'm going to put on an upcoming show. One of them is I got a lengthy article saying, the real estate market's going to crash. It's time to put your money into Bitcoin. A little digging, didn't take much, revealed that the article was put out by somebody who's selling Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So what's the motivation of the people who are putting all the fear tactics, the fear mongering into the marketplace? And then ask them, what specifically is the data? If it's a hunch, okay, everybody's entitled to their hunch. If it's a hypothesis, you're entitled to that as well. What I want to see is the kind of data that leads any reasonable observer to conclude that prices are going down. Mm-hmm. And so far, I haven't seen anything. And after we got off the phone today, Michael, I immediately contacted my number one realtor, south side of Atlanta. I said, how many of your listings are being pulled by concerned homeowners? They don't want, because that thing that you said, every market is different. Georgia's in a different place than Maryland. And my realtor, his response is, I've got this message over here somewhere. He said to me, and I'm going to quote it for you, almost none. We are about to complete the best month I've ever had in real estate. It could all change tomorrow, but for now, we are very busy.
Yeah. And I think that's the moral of what we've been talking about right now. I hate to ever really think out 3-6 months, because honestly, you're right. Stephen said this earlier. I know absolutely nothing. Roger will admit this. We all will admit we have no control over the future.
Right.
However, we can very much pay attention to what's happening right now and every day coming, every sequential day after this, because nothing ever happens overnight. The crash of 2008 we didn't wake up one morning and the economy crashed. It happened over a year and no one paid attention. Right. It was just, honestly, the people who paid attention did not get foreclosed on. They survived. It wasn't fun, but they made it through. And the people that paid no attention, basically said, "Oh, the market got me." But they always talk about it like it just snuck out and just jumped out of a bush on them, and it didn't. It didn't get mugged by the market, right? It happened, but people greed, right? Greed controls a lot of our decision-making processes, and honestly, caused us to really, just, try to we were hoping that things would change. So right now, my belief is that everything I'm seeing, I'm not changing anything because it's awesome, but I'm paying attention every day. And, but I do believe that you can actually create a lot of value and a lot of what I like to call recession proofing by just not wasting money on paying your contractor too much, not paying too much in the first place, because there's more risk day-to-day flipping as a flipper in any economy if you suck at it, right? This is the time to not suck as a house flipper. It's the time to really get your stuff together, to really get sharpen up that knife. Because if you're really good at this, my first coach I ever had said something, I don't repeat much he says because he wasn't the greatest dude, but he said one thing that I love, and he said that there's no such thing as a bad market in real estate. There's just different ways to invest. Right. And it's one of the best sayings I've ever heard, I believe, it to date. And right now, we might really be looking at a different way to invest. We might be looking at nothing at all. But we got to keep our eyes open and pay attention and stay very humble. So that's my takeaway. I got a couple questions, and I have one question, and we'll end this. We know we're getting a little bit late. Guys, it's been awesome. So let me just, I got a few questions from the group. I want to see if we can get through. I just want to mention, Ray said that he just put a house on the market also, and he's been in full lockdown in New Jersey, but still for some reason, I guess people that are realtors are considered essential because they have to be able to continue their deals. So they're using that to go show properties. And he said he got multiple offers, and they were paying a lot of attention to the job security. So I do think that's a little bit of a, when you're taking a contract right now, you definitely would want to be interviewing and finding out what job do they hold. And is this a job that's actually going to be more secure in this economy or less secure? Because some jobs are actually more secure right now. So when we think about a lot of people being out of work, if you're in the restaurant industry, obviously that's not going to be very secure for a while, and they might make some tough cuts later on. So even if they do open back up, you might not come back because they just might not have, you might not be able to hold the crowds anymore, right? You might be able to have like a full restaurant. That might be something we don't see for quite a long time. But if you're a nurse right now, and I know this because my, girlfriend's a nurse, and she literally is she's like, they would take me back in 2 seconds. They're desperate for nurses right now. If you're a cop, you're in law enforcement, you're in any of these things that are actually very vital right now. That's who we're going to be selling homes to, the people whose jobs have gotten more secure in this economy. Because see, look, we don't have to sell to everyone who's out of work. One of the questions I believe Michael asked, are we concerned about people qualifying who've lost their jobs? Well, obviously people who've lost their jobs aren't going to be looking to buy houses, so they won't qualify, and they won't be the people. But the way we're going to pivot, the way I'm pivoting it, and I'd love any feedback from you guys, we'll have to focus on the people who do have jobs right now and whose jobs have gotten more secure and are going to be secure through this. And that's who we're going to be selling to. So we don't have to sell to everyone. We just have to sell our one flip if we're flipping one house. Now, if you're flipping 100 houses, might be a good time to maybe flip 50 houses a year. You don't necessarily have to do 100, but right now, for most of the people on this call, I'm sure you guys are flipping just 1 or 2, and you're in a place where you just have to really drill down on that. We had one more question, Kobe. Do you see any evidence? Let's see. He said, oops, I just lost you there for a second. Do you see any evidence of investors moving out of the stock market and into real estate? Not yet, but if you guys are in the stock market, my only advice I can give you, I've read 20 Warren Buffett books. Don't sell off why it's super low. This is emotional selling. Right now would be an awful time to sell your stocks and move into the real estate market. You don't want to wait. Yeah, you'd want to buy now and cost average, or at least wait a few months for things to, get where they're going to be. Don't wait for things to crash down and sell it. This is what everyone does. They buy high and then they wait for it to crash and they sell it off emotionally. So this is something that everyone who's ever, and I know nothing about stocks, but I know a lot about the emotional behaviors around stocks, and the people that never make money are the ones who always buy when things are high. And then as soon as it takes a little downturn, they sell it off low, and it takes them 20 years to recover. So give yourself a little bit of time. Stocks are long-term. Real estate, if you're a landlord right now, don't make decisions based on the day, because you didn't buy that rental to get rich overnight. You bought it to get rich over a long period of time. And one thing we can all agree with is that real estate over the long period of time has always been an amazing investment. So long-term, you might, if you have a big position in the stock market, you might want to reconsider when you get back to a good, safe place to do so. But I would not sell off today and just, out of any kind of emotion. And I wouldn't do that with real estate either, by the way. Let's see. Jason said, I've heard considering current conditions, the buyer.
I can just throw in there on that, Mike, one little epigram that I tell myself all the time is, ideas come to me suddenly, but decisions do not need to be made suddenly.
True. Yes.
I keep that helps me from being impulsive.
And that's, I think, a big thing now, right? Let's not be impulsive. So Jason said, I'm hurting a lot more buyers are more serious and they're less tire kickers. Yeah, probably so, right? Because the people that weren't so serious, coronavirus is a great reason not to buy a house right now. Just like I've had people who've gotten under contract when I didn't used to qualify them very well. And they come in and like, yeah, we found like a fly in there and we're out. It's like they just find, I had a lady tell me one time there was water coming in and in the basement. And I'm like, there's no way we waterproofed it. Or it can't be water. And she's like, yeah, it's coming behind that black stuff. And I'm like, are you talking about in the waterproofing system? And she's like, yes. And I'm not cool with that. I was like, okay, it's a waterproofing system. It costs it's a lot of money. I got it cheap, but it would cost you a lot of money to do it. Like 10 or 15 grand. It's an upgrade, right? It's a good thing. She's like, nope, I'm not buying it. So I'm pretty good about now qualifying people. And I would say that, yes, this coronavirus probably is doing a little bit of that job for us. So good stuff. So final question, we'll get going. Guys, thank you so much for all the great feedback. In the chaos we're in right now, there's obviously, with any time when there's chaos, there's created opportunity. I would love to know, in the next 3 to 6 months, what are you guys focusing on, or do you believe might be an opportunity that you could share that might come up from what we're in right now?
Go, Stephen. I got to think about that for a minute.
Hold on, Stephen. You're not, I don't hear any sound from you. Sorry about that, buddy. Let's see.
Oh, there we go. I got myself unmuted. I tried to hand it off to Roger. If you want to go first, Roger.
I need to think about it for a minute. The opportunities uniquely coming from the coronavirus, from the pandemic. Give me a minute.
Here's what it is, you guys, right? We just got punched in the face, and we were not expecting to get punched in the face. We were walking down the street. We thought shit was good. We thought we were heading in the right direction. We were like, yeah, baby. Like I got a date. I'm making money. Like life is good. And Corona came in and said, not today. So if anything, you guys, this is just a reminder to strengthen your mindset, to strengthen your skill set, to go out there and actually continue to take action and make sure that you're not just resting on your laurels or resting on what was good right now. Because now is our time to step up. There's going to be a ton of opportunities. Prices, I believe, will get impacted. I feel pretty strongly about that because people are concerned. There's obviously going to be a lot of changes in people socially on how they're acting and reacting as we're coming out of this. But at the end of the day, our job as business owners is to find a need and serve it. So let's just keep our eyes open. What are those needs? What's different today than it was yesterday? And, I really think that's what it all comes down to, is just figuring out like, hey, do people still need houses that are renovated and ready to go? Oh yeah, they do. Well, how am I going to be able to serve that person by being able to create a renovated product? Well, I've got to go find it, and I probably have to find it a little bit better of a deal, and I have to manage it well. So I'm going to need a great coach like Michael Green to make sure that I'm really getting my rehab systems down, and I need to get my mindset in the right place. So I'm probably going to need a coach who's going to help keep me on the right track, and Mike's going to be able to help with that as well. So everything comes down to making sure that you are investing in yourself right now, as well as making sure that you're secure for the future. That's my take.
Okay, I had a minute to think about it. So a little story. 2003, I was standing at the courthouse steps in Clayton County, Georgia, bidding on foreclosures, doing what I did. And a lady came out from the courthouse and she said, "What's going on out here?" And I said to her, "This is the foreclosure auction. We're bidding on these foreclosures and buying them." She said, "Oh, you're just preying on the misfortunes of other people." I said, "Wow." And I turned to a gentleman next to me who was actually an elder in his church and a really good guy. We bid against each other all the time, but we had become friends, and he'd been doing this a lot longer than I had. And I said, "Man, what do you say to that?" He said, "Well, I didn't cause their problems. I'm just buying a house." That's a good word of wisdom. Where we are right now is we have problems that none of us foresaw, but also none of us caused it. Because of this, there are going to be opportunities to buy houses. There's always kind of a fine line between preying on the misfortune of others and just buying a house. I alluded to this earlier. Because there is a panic, there's a general state of panic, and it may get worse. This may lead to some panic selling. Well, I'm not causing their panic, and I'm not going to do anything to stoke their panic. But if somebody is in a panic and they want to sell a house, well, I'll buy it. And I think that's going to give us an opportunity to buy things a little bit stronger than maybe we have for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I definitely will resonate with that too. I'm sure that, especially with the direct to seller, there's going to be more opportunity because, they were very confident. They were very cocky for many years. Like they had no reason to sell. If they waited 6 months, they'd probably get more for their property. And now I would bet they're probably thinking, who knows what's ahead in 6 months. So let's just go and take what we can get today. So there's going to be some opportunity there. For me, I'm going to give you what I think the big opportunity is right now. This has just been proven. Like if you do a lot of research like me, I've studied over the last week, the last 200 years of recessions that we've had and what caused them and, all those things. And I got a lot more to do. I'm getting a little insane. I think I told Steven earlier, I'm a little concerned. There might be a little mental illness. Who knows? I'm getting a little crazy about it. I'm going over the top just a little bit, but
slightly obsessive, slightly.
I'm protective of my, my world. Right. And I want it to stay the same as much as possible. But I think what I have seen and what I've learned as a moral and a thing that I follow as my life is that when things are really good, we get very soft and we get very lazy because we don't have to be tough. And I think this is our opportunity to really strengthen up, right? To get hardcore, to dig in, to really get boots to the ground and grind it out, work harder, stay later. I have never worked harder than staying at home. I literally am waking up in the morning and there's times 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm working on stuff because this is my time to toughen up and get stronger mentally, physically, and financially. And you know what? 100 times in the last week have said that Corona has been a blessing in disguise for me personally. I'm not downplaying what's happening to the world and our economy or anything or the people that have suffered. This is a really bad, tragic event for many people. But personally, what I'm taking from it is that it's time for me to get a little tougher. And I was getting a little soft over the last year because it's been amazing for many, many years in a row. And it's time to get real tough. And you know what? That toughness, when things do go back to normal, because they always do, we don't know if that's a month from now, it's 2 years from now, but it will go back. That's the one thing I can tell you from studying 200 years of recessions. They always come back. And when they do, you know how you get through it is being tough, but how you really cash in is being way over prepared when everyone else was kind of giving up, right? Like really keeping to the ground and fighting hard. So I'm going to start doing 25 push-ups a day if anyone wants to join me on that. That including just part of my mental toughness. And Steven, I'm actually in Steven's mindset group, which is pretty cool. And by the way, Roger, Steven, you mentioned you need a great coach. Roger's an amazing coach. He teaches some really cool stuff. If you guys haven't checked out the podcast that I have with him, he talks about some really cool things that I would imagine are not really probably falling down too much because he loves to buy really cheap homes and then sell them and rent them out for $500 to $600 a month. I'm sure you might not want to do that for maybe a couple weeks or so until we see what's going on, but that will still be a good thing. People always need $600 homes, right? The rent, that's not going to ever fall apart. Collecting rents right now might be the reason you don't want to go do it tomorrow afternoon, but in 30 to 60 days, this is going to be back opened up and probably going to be a pretty cool opportunity to do so. So guys, thank you so much for amazing feedback, and everyone who came to the call, thank you guys so much. Steven, you gave so much positivity, and Roger and Dan, everyone, I'm highly appreciative of that. Anything you want to say going out? I'd love you, Steven, if you want to tell a little bit about he has a great mindset group. I think it's actually very affordable. You guys pay for a year. I'm in it personally. I love it. I was on there today getting some really cool information. Roger actually coaches people on just about whatever. He knows about construction. He's been around, man. Me and him talked and I was like, holy crap. Yeah, man, we've done a lot of houses and we had that in common. But he's got a little different approach to some of the things he does. And, which I think is really cool and very awesome. So Steven, you want to start? Let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for showing up because that is the first step to you guys getting where you want to go for sure, without a doubt. So I really encourage you guys, if you haven't followed me before, definitely check out the podcast. Michael's got a phenomenal episode, which I dropped a link to, but we'll follow up with a link to that via email. But, if you guys are looking for more of this podcast, great free option, really good place to start. But if you're ready to take it to the next level, we meet on a bi-weekly basis where we have some phenomenal coaches who are coaching and training and teaching on exactly how you need to be changing the way that you're thinking, kind of calling out some of those limiting beliefs, calling out some of those limiting views of your identity and who you believe you are. And most importantly, applying the strategies that the same millionaires and billionaires are using in their business. And like today's call, we had Trevor McGregor, former Tony Robbins coach, 25,000 hours of coaching experience. He's currently spending, essentially 20 hours a day. He's sleeping hardly at all, talking to all of his clients, millionaires and billionaires around the country. And we get to spend an hour and a half, almost 2 hours with him, really diving into how can we make some changes right now so that we can really be heading in the right direction. So if that is at all interest to you guys, you can head over to the investormindset.com/action. We've got a nice little page, tells you a little bit of what we do. But like I said, the podcast is a great place to start if you're not ready to just step up and jump right into changing yourself.
Oh, Roger, jump on in, buddy.
Hey, you can find me at rogerblankenship.com. And really what I want to offer to you, a lot of people are concerned about where the economy is going. We're in the 300, we're like at show 350 now, but show 187, I believe, 187, I did a show on the leading indicators for the real estate market. And if you want to track what we are tracking at Flipping America, just go listen to that show. We have a free app in the App Store. It's called Flipping America. And you could download and listen. You can listen on any of the podcast platforms, but with our app, you have the ability to search by keyword and by personality. You can search for Stephen. You can search for Michael. They've both been on the show. Or you can search by topic. And the other thing that the app offers you is all of my show notes are in there. All of the articles that we referenced during each individual episode, all 350 shows, they're all active links. If you're listening on your phone, you can touch it and you can read the article while I'm making fun of it. All the way through, this is 3 years worth of, a lot of hours of real estate education, completely free. The whole thing is completely free. And I encourage you to do that. And if you go to rogerblankenship.com, I've got free videos right there, finding your fit, making money, finding your first deal, helping you get started. A lot of other resources just coming out of, 20 plus years of experience doing this and, 1,000 deals.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And I want to just let you know that, a lot of people ask me, what podcast do you listen to? And Stevens is definitely one of them, and Rogers is definitely one of them. You're getting really good information on there, and that's not true about all podcasts. So, when I invited people on here, I was like, I wanted to invite people that I respected, that I knew had similar philosophies, and they really do give in a big way on their shows. So thank you guys for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Everyone
Michael.
Stay safe. And we also have just one more little thing. If you're interested, Roger has something coming up tomorrow, correct?
That's right.
Tomorrow. And then Stephen, is yours on Friday or tomorrow?
It's on Friday.
So I'll make sure I send an email out that actually gives you all their information. Also let you know about Roger's going to have some guests on there on Thursday. I believe Thursday at 6, correct?
7.
Okay. Thursday at 7. And yours is what time, Stephen?
It's on Friday at noon, 12 Pacific time. Okay. So we'll send out something via email, but if you guys are looking, I would definitely encourage you to, take action, definitely check out the show, and appreciate you put this on, Mike. It was a phenomenal time. We'll see you guys soon.
Michael. I just put in the comments a registration link for tomorrow night's call.
Cool. And thank you guys. I suggest you listen to it. It's good stuff, guys. See you, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Ben.